cases reported by 2 different hospitals. Both of them are negative for Ebola virus disease. In Anambra, the case that was thought, a corpse that was brought from one of those 3 main countries, Liberia, and people were afraid, having come from Liberia, could it be Ebola virus disease? We've evaluated all the primary contacts, all the mortuary attendants, morticians, family members. They were all tested for Ebola virus disease. They are all negative. In Abia, one of the papers carried over the weekend, we have thoroughly investigated. Clinically, what that patient has is called Steven Johnson syndrome. It's a drug reaction to an anti-malaria she took when she had malaria. But nonetheless, we've taken blood, and hopefully tomorrow or next, the result of the blood test will come up. But clinically, we're satisfied it is not Ebola virus disease. In the case of Imo, a corpse that was brought from Liberia, again, the state authorities notified us, and when we started the investigation, we found actually they had a proper medical certificate of death issued properly by the hospital. That person did not die from Ebola virus disease. So we are satisfied and okayed it for normal burial.
For the governors present, what is important is for everyone to know what to do at each point in time. They call for equipment for health workers, recommend quality control for equipment, and life insurance cover for health workers. They said that the challenge is on transparency and openness.
It's important to reinforce the necessity for transparency and openness across the whole country. This is not something you keep inside any religious house and be praying for. This is something you must report to us quickly so that in whatever place you are, we are able to respond, come and pick the patient. There are not patients also that you can move or you should move by taxis or by public transport. So it's important to understand this. If they need prayers in the isolation centers where care is provided for them, prayers can move by electronic and other means to come and move them there.
The country representative of World Health Organization commended the declaration that Ebola in Nigeria is a national emergency, while his counterpart in the Center for Disease Control said Nigeria is ahead in the effort to deal with Ebola virus. The meeting also brought to the fore the importance of keeping decent personal hygiene as exemplified by the president and the governors present. Chukuma Onwekusi, Channels Television News.
And after almost 3 months of battling the Ebola virus disease, Nigeria was finally declared Ebola-free by the World Health Organization on October the 20th, 2014. WHO Country Director Riz Gamavaz officially gave the country a clean bill of health at a news conference in Abuja. He also commended the Nigerian government's efforts at containing the disease.
May their soul rest in perfect peace. Please be seated.
This news conference is unlike several others that have been organized by the Health Ministry in the past. The gathering is to witness the World Health Organization's public announcement of Nigeria as an Ebola-free nation.
Today, 20th of October, 42 days, it means twice of the incubation period. After the last confirmed case of Ebola virus disease was discharged from the isolation ward, having tested negative for the Ebola virus, the chains of transmission have been broken. WHO officially declares that Nigeria is now free of Ebola virus transmission. We need to continue sharing the Nigeria's experience and country's expertise to help other countries to urgently contain the Ebola epidemic and supporting others in their preparedness and response plans.
Nigeria has not recorded any new case of Ebola since the last case was discharged from the hospital about 2 months ago. United States Center for Disease Control believes the world must learn from Nigeria's efforts in containing the disease.
We're able to isolate this case quickly. We're able to rapidly identify it. We're able to rapidly trace the contacts. We had very strong systems in place on the government side, both from federal levels down to the state levels, down to the facility. And we learned lessons from the various systems in place, whether through NCDC, the Polio Eradication Operations Center. We have just been very impressed with the wealth of the whole harmonized response that we've seen here that relies not solely on the public health system, but also these other systems that have been raised by both the Minister of Information and our Honorable Minister of Health.
This risk and the risk to other countries can only be eliminated through the setting up of a system similar to the Nigerian one under the leadership of the United Nations, but with the operational wing built around ECOWAS.
But having successfully conquered Ebola, what's next?
What next is enhance alert system, getting prepared, for eventualities and make sure that it doesn't come in again. But if it does, we should be able to really, round it off even faster.
With Ebola virus disease still ravaging some West African countries and cases of the disease in Europe and the United States, vigilance, especially at the entry points, must be taken seriously to avoid new outbreaks of the disease.
Well, perhaps a critical factor in Nigeria's battle to contain the Ebola virus disease outbreak was the nation's wide strike by doctors in government-owned hospitals. Medical doctors in the public hospitals across the country embarked on an industrial action on July the 1st over welfare issues, including salary rise. It now narrowed down the options of the first Ebola case to a private hospital, with its lower population making it easier to track down and isolate the Liberian. However, in the heat of the Ebola containment efforts, the doctors called off their strike on August the 24th. The face-off between government and its doctors had seen the withdrawal of the residency program for doctors, and both sides, however, came to an understanding in the interest of all Nigerians.
Well then, Nigeria did successfully battle the Ebola virus scourge, but then there were other issues that the country had to deal with, particularly security. And when we return after the break, that's exactly what we will be checking out. How did Nigeria battle the issue of insecurity, particularly in the northern part of the country? And we'll be looking specifically at the abduction of the Chibok girls.
Yes, please join us again.
And while the country successfully battled its health challenge, the war against insecurity and insurgency had already been raging, particularly in the northeast of the country. Boko Haram